Breaking news. Viking Nation. The first revelation is about to detonate inside US Bank Stadium, and you're not ready for what's coming. 5 explosive updates just hit Minneapolis like a Norse thunderstorm, each one more shocking than the last. A franchise cornerstone returns from the dead after nearly a year in exile. A veteran warrior shakes off illness to rejoin the battlefield. League officials turn their backs on justice while our young king bleeds. Reinforcements rise from the practice squad trenches, and our fallen quarterback shows signs of life that could change everything. Each of these shocks could redefine the future of this team as we march into battle against Cincinnati. And if you bleed purple and gold more than you hate the Packers, you need to hear every single word, because this war is just beginning. The storm clouds are gathering over Minneapolis, and what happens next will either forge legends or break hearts across the entire state of Minnesota. But hold on. As shocking as that is, the first bombshell cuts deeper than a frozen January night at TCF Bank Stadium, and it's about to flip the script on everything you thought you knew about this Sunday's war against the Bengals. Picture this nightmare scenario that's been haunting Viking Nation for months. Our offensive line crumbling like ancient ruins while our quarterback gets massacred behind a patchwork wall of backup players. And suddenly you realize why this next revelation is pure gold, wrapped in purple lightning. Christian Darrisaw is back from the dead, Viking Warriors, after vanishing into the Shadow Realm since Week 8 of last season, when his ACL exploded like a grenade in the trenches, and alongside him rises Harrison Smith, our immortal safety who's been battling illness like a true Norseman fights through winter storms. Both legends are expected to start on Sunday against Cincinnati, and while they'll rotate on and off the field like battle-tested generals managing their energy, this is the kind of news that makes grown Vikings fans weep, tears of pure joy, because we've been watching our offensive line get demolished like a house of cards in a hurricane. Darrisaw's backup Justin Skule is out with a concussion, which means without our franchise left tackle, Carson Wentz would be running for his life behind a line that's been more porous than Swiss cheese. But now the gods of Valhalla have smiled upon us with the return of our 6'6" mountain of muscle, who protects quarterbacks like ancient warriors protected their kings. Can you imagine the relief flooding through Kevin O'Connell's mind right now, knowing that his offensive line just went from catastrophic weakness to legitimate strength in one magical moment? And Harrison Smith returning from illness is like getting your wisest advisor back just when the enemy army approaches the gates. This man has been the heartbeat of our secondary since 2012, and his football IQ is so high it practically qualifies as supernatural. Think about this for a second, Viking Nation. How many times have we watched opposing quarterbacks pick apart our defense when Smith wasn't on the field, and how many times has he single-handedly saved games with interceptions that seemed to come from nowhere? The timing couldn't be more perfect, because we're about to face Jake Browning, who torched us for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns in our last meeting, and having both Darrisaw and Smith back is like having Thor and Odin return to lead us into battle when the stakes have never been higher. And just when fans thought it couldn't get crazier, here comes the next bombshell that's going to make your blood boil with the fire of 1,000 suns, because what happened to our young king J.J. McCarthy is the kind of injustice that would make the ancient Vikings sail across oceans for revenge. The NFL has officially turned their backs on justice, Viking Nation, completely ignoring what appears to be a blatant hip-drop tackle that potentially changed the course of our entire season. And the silence from league headquarters is more deafening than a blizzard in the Minnesota wilderness. Caden Ellis of the Atlanta Falcons executed what Kevin O'Connell is convinced was an illegal hip-drop tackle on a 2nd and 20 late in the third quarter, rolling up on McCarthy's right ankle in a move that was specifically outlawed before the 2024 season because it was causing too many devastating injuries. The footage arguably shows Ellis wrapping up our quarterback and rotating his hips before dropping onto McCarthy's legs, which is the textbook definition of the banned technique. Yet when the NFL released their weekly fines on Saturday, there was absolutely nothing. No punishment, no acknowledgement. No justice for the tackle that put our franchise quarterback in a walking boot and handed the keys to Carson Wentz. How does the league ban a specific tackling technique because it's too dangerous, then completely ignore it when it happens to one of their rising young stars in prime time? This isn't just about one play or one injury. This is about the NFL's commitment to player safety being nothing more than empty words when it comes to protecting small market teams like Minnesota. And every Viking fan should be furious that our season could be derailed by a tackle that should have drawn a flag, a fine, and possibly even a suspension. O'Connell has been crystal clear about what he saw in that play, stating with the confidence of a man who studied thousands of hours of film that this was the exact type of tackle the league claims to be eliminating from the game. The fact that McCarthy was scrambling for 16 yards, showing the kind of mobility and playmaking ability that makes him special, only makes the illegal tackle more infuriating because it robbed us of watching our young king continue to develop in what should have been a statement game against a quality opponent. Instead, we're left wondering if this injury will linger into our games against Pittsburgh in Dublin and Cleveland in London, two massive international showcases where McCarthy should have been proving he belongs among the elite quarterbacks in this league. But that's not the only fire burning inside this franchise. The next revelation is even more explosive, and it proves that when one Viking falls, another rises to take his place in the eternal cycle of Norse warrior tradition. While the football world focuses on our quarterback situation, the real story brewing in Minneapolis is about Harrison Smith, making his season debut after missing the first 2 games due to illness, and Brian Flores' defense is about to receive the kind of boost that could transform them from mediocre to magnificent in one Sunday afternoon. Smith isn't just any safety returning from injury. He's the most tenured Viking on the entire roster, drafted back in 2012 with a first-round pick when this franchise was still dreaming of the playoff success that would eventually come. And despite being considered old by NFL standards, he remains one of the most intelligent and impactful safeties in the entire league. The timing of his return couldn't be more perfect because we're currently ranked 17th in total defense, which is absolutely unacceptable for a team with championship aspirations, and Smith's presence in the secondary is like adding a chess grandmaster to a team of checkers players. Remember what happened in our last meeting with the Bengals when Jake Browning completed 29 of 41 attempts for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns, including that game-tying score to T. Higgins that broke Viking hearts across the frozen tundra? That kind of offensive explosion doesn't happen when Harrison Smith is patrolling the secondary like a hawk circling over prey, reading quarterback eyes and jumping routes with the kind of instinctive brilliance that comes from studying the game for over a decade. Flores has been waiting for this moment since training camp began, knowing that his defensive schemes work best when he has a safety who can play multiple positions, cover elite receivers, and communicate adjustments to the entire defense like a field general directing troops in battle. The fact that Smith is returning against a Bengals offense that's already proven they can move the ball against us makes this comeback story even more dramatic, because this isn't just about getting a good player back. This is about getting the defensive leader who could be the difference between another heartbreaking loss and a statement victory that announces to the NFL that Minnesota is ready for war. Stay with me, because what comes next will flip the script in ways nobody predicted. And it's the kind of depth move that separates championship organizations from pretenders when the injury bug starts biting harder than a Minnesota winter freeze. Cam Akers has been elevated from the practice squad to the active roster alongside guard Henry Bird. And this isn't just roster shuffling. This is Kevin O'Connell showing exactly why he's considered one of the brightest offensive minds in the game by having contingency plans for his contingency plans. Akers is about to begin his 3rd stint in Minnesota, which tells you everything you need to know about how much O'Connell values his skill set. Having previously acquired him via trade in both 2023 and 2024 because their relationship dates back to the Los Angeles Rams, where they first learned to trust each other in high-pressure situations. With Aaron Jones Sr. now on injured reserve and depth back Xavier Scott unable to practice due to an ankle injury, the Vikings needed reinforcements in the backfield, and Akers represents the kind of proven veteran presence who can step in and contribute immediately without missing a beat. Jordan Mason is expected to lead the rushing attack after an impressive start to his Minnesota career. Averaging 4.1 yards per carry through 98 yards on 24 attempts against Chicago and Atlanta, but having Akers available as a change of pace option gives O'Connell the flexibility to keep defenses guessing about what's coming next. Think about the chess match happening here. O'Connell knows that Cincinnati will be game planning specifically to stop Mason, expecting him to carry the load in the absence of our injured stars. But now, he can deploy Akers in situations where his unique skill set might catch the Bengals off guard. This is the third time O'Connell has brought Akers into the Vikings family, which means their communication and trust level is already established, eliminating the typical learning curve that comes with mid-season roster additions. Henry Bird's elevation also shows that the coaching staff is thinking multiple steps ahead, ensuring they have depth and flexibility along the offensive line to complement Darrisaw's return and protect Carson Wentz from the kind of punishment that could derail our entire season. Can you imagine the confidence flowing through the locker room right now, knowing that even when injuries threaten to destroy our depth, the front office and coaching staff have plans within plans to keep this machine running smoothly? This is how championship organizations operate. They don't panic when adversity strikes. They adapt and overcome with the kind of strategic thinking that turns potential disasters into competitive advantages. And listen closely. The next 72 hours might be the most decisive in this franchise's recent history, because the final update about what J.J. McCarthy contains the kind of hope that could ignite Viking Nation's dreams or crush them completely, depending on how quickly our young king can heal from the injustice that befell him in Atlanta. Kevin O'Connell revealed that McCarthy is no longer wearing the walking boot that had fans across Minnesota holding their breath in terror, calling it a precaution that's no longer necessary as the swelling decreases and the healing process accelerates faster than anyone dared to hope. O'Connell's words should be music to every Viking fan's ears. He's handling his responsibilities from a rehab standpoint. We're kind of through the initial wave of that. As far as getting the swelling down and all those things, which sounds like the kind of medical progress that could have our franchise quarterback back on the field sooner than the pessimists predicted. But here's where it gets really interesting. McCarthy has been attending practice just 5 days after the injury, showing the kind of mental toughness and dedication that separates future stars from career backups. And his presence around the team, even while injured, demonstrates the leadership qualities that made Minnesota fall in love with him in the first place. Through his first 2 games this season, McCarthy has completed 24 of 41 pass attempts for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, while adding 50 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. Numbers that tell the story of a 22-year-old quarterback who's still learning but showing flashes of the brilliance that could define this franchise for the next decade. The fact that he's progressing so quickly from an injury that looked potentially devastating is testament to both his physical conditioning and mental resilience, qualities that bode well for his return against either Pittsburgh in Dublin or Cleveland in London. 2 international showcases where the entire football world will be watching to see if Minnesota's young king can rise from adversity stronger than before. While Carson Wentz prepares to start against Cincinnati, the knowledge that McCarthy is healing ahead of schedule provides the kind of hope that can sustain a fan base through the darkest moments of a season filled with unexpected challenges. Think about the narrative arc developing here. A young quarterback suffers what appears to be a dirty hit. The league ignores the injustice, but he refuses to let adversity define him, working tirelessly to return to the battlefield where he belongs. And that's the kind of story that creates legends in the frozen tundra of Minnesota. And if this week felt like an earthquake, what's coming next could be the aftershock that topples the whole season. Because these 5 revelations have set the stage for a Bengals game that will either prove Viking Nation's championship dreams are real, or expose them as beautiful illusions destined to shatter against the harsh reality of NFL competition. The return of Darrisaw and Smith transforms us from wounded warriors into a legitimate threat. The NFL's refusal to punish Atlanta has given us the kind of motivation that fuels championship runs. Our defensive captain is back to lead the charge, our depth has been reinforced with proven veterans, and our franchise quarterback is healing faster than anyone expected. If you believe the Vikings are destined for greatness more than you hate the Packers, smash that like button right now and let the football world know that Viking Nation doesn't bow down to anyone, not the Bengals, not the NFL officials who ignore injustice, and definitely not the doubters who think one injury can derail our championship dreams. Drop a comment telling me which of these 5 updates excites you most, because I need to know if you're as fired up as I am about watching this team prove that adversity only makes Vikings stronger. And hit that subscribe button if you want to join an army of purple and gold warriors who refuse to let anyone disrespect our franchise ever again. Because if you thought this was the peak of chaos, the real avalanche is just starting, and next week's matchup against the Steelers in Dublin could be the moment when J.J. McCarthy announces to the entire world that he's ready to lead this franchise back to the promised land of playoff glory that's been calling our names for far too long.